Hey everybody, it's Tony George from Tony's Time, DocSports.com, and of course Arun Shiva joins me here, and he is better known as Indian Cowboy over at DocSports.com, and we're talking NFL Week 6, and before we get to Week 6, we had a Tuesday game, a little bit of a surprising Tuesday game. I had a free play video out on Buffalo. I liked them all year long, Arun. Liked their head coach a lot. Like their quarterback play a lot. They have both performed at a high level. Beasley, obviously, a playmaker for them. Diggs, and they've had a lot of time to prep for this game. And Tennessee's had all kinds of COVID things swirling around them, and lo and behold, hung 42 on them last night in what I would consider a very surprising result for a McDermott coach team that looked like they were ready to play a ball game last night.
Yeah, what's interesting about that game is Tennessee passed for less than 200 yards in that game. And when Ryan Tannehill passes for less than that, you wouldn't think that they're going to have a huge day, but they ran for 130 yards. They were 6 for 6 from the red zone. When you're that efficient and you get 170 yards return yardage, that's the same thing as 170 yards rushing or 170 yards passing. There's different ways to win football games when your special teams edge is so big. And your quarterback play is fantastic. Now, I don't blame a lot of people that were on the Bills. Josh Allen was playing like an MVP, and but teams have a way of getting up for these undefeated teams, right? Minnesota beating Seattle, for example, and now Tennessee beating Buffalo. And I think it's really smart what the Tennessee coaching staff did is they kind of made it like a rallying cry. Everybody's mad at us for COVID, and they're trying to shut down our facility. Kumbaya, the world is against us. Let's get after them. No one likes us. And then you know what I mean? You use anything as motivation. So I think that's what he did. The coaching staff did. It was really smart. It was a big win by them.
Yeah, Tannehill proved to be the better quarterback. He had a lot of success in the red zone, throwing and passing. And, I think that Tennessee, I may have underestimated them a little bit and way overestimated Buffalo in that spot. And of course, they got Kansas City on deck this week. So that's going to be interesting to see how they respond because speaking of teams that were unbeaten that got beat last week, a team got up for them. The Raiders got up as a 12-point dog and got all over my Chiefs. And I had no skin in that game whatsoever. But at the end of the day here, one thing I said last week on the show, and I'll say it again this week, I thought last week going into the weekend with the card and the lines and the information that guys like me and you have at our fingertips, 4 or 5 games into the season, I thought the handicap was pretty easy last week. I ended up going 5-1. I lost Cincinnati in a teaser, won the other half. That was the only loss that I had. But at the end of the day, I think this week's even easier. I really feel like there's some good opportunity this week, Arun, and out there. And one game I did want to talk about and a team that I'm pissed off at myself for not taking last week, and that was the Carolina Panthers last week. And they did a hell of a job. And as you had alluded to a couple of weeks ago on the show, you gave a lot of praise out to Matt Rule and his coaching ability for Carolina. I wasn't sold as of yet, but he keeps coaching his way into winning football games. Teddy Bridgewater keeps covering spreads, and they take on the Chicago Bears this week at home. Laying right now, the number is 2.5 over 44.5. Chicago 4-1 with smoke and mirrors, Arun, or is this an earned 4-1 record and a team that needs to be reckoned with? Or are they a paper tiger? I guess that's the question I'm putting to you right now.
Yeah, it's interesting because, Matt Nagy is like the Matt Rule of 2 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're both amazing coaches. They both do so much with so little. If you just what even Matt Nagy, what he does with Cordarrelle Patterson, moves him around the ball, gets him his fair share of touches. I mean, these guys don't have elite skill players, and yet they do so much with almost nothing. Are the Chicago Bears a paper tiger? That's a great question. It's interesting because we all thought that Tampa Bay probably they had a decent shot at losing that game against Chicago just because of the line, because you knew Chicago was going to get up after that horrible game against the Colts, scoring just 11 points. It was going to be one of those ugly defensive battle type games. The fact that they beat Atlanta is not that impressive. Everybody beats my Falcons. The fact that they beat the Giants wasn't that impressive. The Lions always get outcoached in the second half. The only real true win was Tampa Bay, but how do they handle success? How do they handle beating a team that they're not supposed to beat? So when you look at it from that perspective, my early lean is on the Panthers.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to beat the Panthers, you need to have a real strong scoring punch. I mean, are Chicago's wins impressive, or are Carolina's wins impressive? They beat Arizona by 10 when Arizona was coming off a loss. They beat the Chargers on the road by 5 and held them to 16 points. Yeah, they lost to Tampa Bay, but they were in that game, actually. They lost to Vegas, which was the first true shocker, by only 4 points at home. Now this team's won 3 in a row, ever so quietly. So you have to think that Carolina's wins have actually been more impressive. And, of course, the public still likes Chicago here because the word is not out on Carolina. I mean, we know the word is out. You and I know, but the public generally still hasn't completely got the picture yet.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they fare here. This is the first time they've been favored all season, the Carolina Panthers. So they've been playing the underdog role, the woe is me, good coaching angles. No one's given us a chance. Bear in mind, in that Tampa Bay game, one of the few times I took Carolina, they turned the ball over 3 times inside the 25-yard line in that game, and we're down on the 4-yard line, to score when the clock ran out. That being said, in this game, I would lean under 44.5. I think that defense, obviously I'm not sold on Chicago's offense at all. I'm not sold on it. Foles had, basically one good quarter against your Falcons and really hasn't done much other than that. And so I'm not going to hang my hat on how he performed against the Falcons.
Anybody's going to do well against. I mean, the Falcons had KZ out for the year. They have Keanu Neal out for the year. I mean, we literally have no safety, Tony. So you can just, as long as you can go deep on us, you're fine. So
yeah, and I think that's really the only really spark of offense. I don't think Tampa Bay is a dominating defensive football team. I think they're a good defensive football team, better than they were at the beginning of the year. I think Tampa Bay's gaining some steam and getting better, but that was a woeful performance there at the end of the day here. I like the under here. I think the Chicago defense is still the strength of their team. I think that Carolina will not be able to put up a lot of points. I think this is easily going to be one of those, 20-13, 20-17 type ball games, and maybe a coin flip on the side. I would lean Carolina. Let's talk about the Detroit Lions here. Patricia's group. They're laying 3.5 points on the road at Jacksonville. Jacksonville off a bad performance. Detroit, not well coached, in my opinion, but obviously the best quarterback in the game here. The one thing that concerns me a lot, if you like a home dog here, Arun, Jacksonville cannot stop anybody. They just can't stop anybody defensively. You got Matt Stafford here, and I know all the Detroit Lions still trying to get to the playoffs since Bobby Lane in 1958 and all. But look, their exploits are well documented. But at the end of the day, I will tell you, Matt Stafford is a top 6 or 7 quarterback in the NFL. Matt Stafford, if he was on any other team outside of the Jets and the Browns or the Lions, he probably would have a Super Bowl ring if he was playing for somebody good. He's got that kind of arm talent. He's a gamer. And I think Detroit might go down here and pull out a can of whoop ass on them. In my opinion, they've had some added time to prep. And Jacksonville now, after that win against the Colts, basically out of the gate, really haven't done much to impress anybody, in my opinion. And here is Detroit warranted laying 3.5 on the road. Total 54.5, so they're expecting some points around.
Yeah, it's interesting because the public likes Detroit here, but I think the public is probably right because Tony, Detroit, even though they're 1-4, they could easily be 3-1, right? I actually had a play on Detroit when they faced the Chicago Bears. If it wasn't for those 21 points the Bears scored in the fourth quarter because 3 defensive backs got hurt for Detroit, and that's what saved Mitchell Trubisky for another week. Detroit should have won that game. They should have won it kind of handily by 10 points. It was those 3 injuries that cost them. And then, you have a game against the Saints where they just coughed up a huge lead, and the Saints came kind of roaring back. But at the very least, they should be 2-2, and nobody would really be calling for Patricia's head. And as you said it, I mean, Terry Bradshaw seems to agree with you because he came out and said that Matt Patricia can't coach worth the lick, was his quote unquote. So that was kind of sharp, kind of harsh words for Patricia. But the funny thing is they should actually be 2-2, and they did beat Arizona on the road. So the only really bad loss was to Green Bay. Other than that, the other loss was to the Saints, and then they should have beat the Bears, and then they beat Arizona. So I think it's definitely warranted. I don't hold the loss that Jacksonville had against Houston too much because Houston fired O'Brien. So then these guys, J.J. Watt and O'Brien had a run in, right, in practice. And now they want to prove that O'Brien was the issue. So they kind of came together as a kumbaya and they played for Romeo Crennel. So I don't hold that loss too much against them. But if one has to take a lean on a side here, it has to be the Lions, who are just probably super hungry for a win here. Maybe they step up for their coach too and win, especially since he's taking so much heat.
Well, here's a statistic that just scares the bejesus out of me. And that is, since last year, they've had a double-digit lead in 11 games. 2-1 straight up in those games. 14-0. Is it possible that they get out to a double-digit lead in this game against Jacksonville? Hell yeah. It's more than possible. Can they hold that lead? Can they maintain it? Can they cover 3.5? Until they do, I really don't want to put my money on it. Let's see what happens here. And bear in mind, they're 15-20-1 against the spread under Patricia as well. So it's not a team I'm looking to get all over on the road just yet. They should beat up on Jacksonville, especially with added time to prepare. I'll tell you this. If they can't win this game by a touchdown or more, or they get a 14 or 10-point lead and blow it again, Patricia is going to be in the conversation with Adam Gase about who's going to get fired next, because I think they've had just about enough.
Yeah, and I do lean on the over in this game too, simply because Jaguars only scored 14 points last game, and that's only because the Texans kind of came together as a team. So that's a good point about the total being high. I think it's high for a reason, and I think the Lions. So if the Jaguars are an active dog, it could push the game over. The Jaguars only scored 14 points last game, could push the game over, and the Lions need to probably save their coach, which will push the game over. So probably lean on the over for me too.
Both of our teams. You're an Atlanta Falcons fan. I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan. Both our teams lost last week. But since I'm the host of the show, I'm only going to highlight the Falcons this week in the bad light. I'm going to leave Kansas City, Buffalo alone. But nonetheless, you take off, go up to Minnesota. Vikings off a performance. They've had a couple of one-point losses and against really good teams in really good games this year where they performed so well. Now Dalvin Cook's out. But nonetheless, Atlanta did what everybody, I thought maybe we talked about it last week. If they could lose Quinn, and by God they did. They fired him. So now you have Atlanta going up here, interim head coach, Matty Ryan, probably the best quarterback in this game. Although Cousins has did nothing in that in Minnesota game, And speaking of pissed off at coaches, there's probably not a fan of Minnesota that's not pissed off at Mike Zimmer. Kick the damn field goal. When Russell Wilson is standing on the sideline and there's 1:47 on the clock, you don't go for it on fourth down. You don't do it. But he did, and he put the ball in the hands of the best quarterback in the NFL, the leading MVP candidate, without question. What happened? Well, they got their ass handed to them. I think maybe they come back here with a little bit of moxie. Falcons, that, frankly, I'll ask you, you're down in that neck of the woods. They follow them very, very attitude. Going to lead these guys? Can they pick themselves off the mat? And it's an awfully tough test to go up and play Minnesota, who's not in a good mood after the Sunday night game as well. And although Mike Zimmer pissed down his leg on Sunday night, he's still a pretty good football coach, and he'll have his team ready to play here, Rune.
Yeah, so I got some interesting thoughts on this game. For one, I don't ever mind talking about the Falcons because look at my Braves right over there, or right over there over my shoulder. They're up 2-0 right now, leading the series.
Yeah.
So at least we got something to hang our hat on, so to speak. So I'm okay with that. At least we're not totally depressed because of that. But as far as this game's concerned, Raheem Morris used to coach for the Tampa Bay Bucks. I actually watched the live conference with Arthur Blank and Dan McKay, right? I saw the live news feed, and they were coming out and they're talking about 4,000 Falcons fans. So I watched that live feed. It was interesting that he's going to give Raheem Morris a chance to kind of win over the job as the interim coach. And I actually think the Falcons are going to cover this game. And I'm trying not to be emotional about it, but I've always believed that whenever there's a coaching change, teams have a tendency to kind of get up. And I think the Falcons will play for this game, which is funny because there was a viewer that asked Arthur Blank a question. They're like, or I actually asked McKay, the GM, why would you promote the defensive coordinator because the defense has been so bad as the head coach? And it's a valid question, but I think they'll come together, kumbaya. I think they'll play well for him. The offense hasn't been that bad. I think it's a big deal to fire a coach who led you to the Super Bowl, and They were basically one quarter away, or just all they had to do was kneel the ball 3 times and they would have won that game near the end.
Yep.
So I think this is a dangerous game for Minnesota. I could see Minnesota winning by 1, for example. I think the Falcons, if they lose this game, they're all in on the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes. Matt Ryan will all of a sudden have some sort of injury out of nowhere. Matt Schaub was horrible, now quarterback the rest of the season. They will come up with an injury. And there's a chance that why can't the Cowboys deal for Matt Ryan? Why not? Why not send over a first-round draft pick or a second-round draft pick and deal for Ryan, given how much Dak could be injured? Or even the Baltimore Ravens, if you feel like Lamar can't lead you to the promised land as you're 29th in passing, why not take a look at Matt Ryan? I think I would not be surprised, and you'll hear it first on our show here. I wouldn't be surprised if Ryan gets dealt. Let the Falcons tank. Go get Trevor Lawrence, who's from the Clemson area, right? So a southeastern kumbaya there going on. That'll play well to the Atlanta fans. And Matt Ryan's getting older. Send him to Dallas for their Super Bowl run now. But I do think Atlanta covers this game.
Well, I'll get you double or nothing on that steak and beer you owe me at Bob Taylor's out here in Las Vegas. I'm going to go ahead and
I'm going to owe you about 10 steaks, man. I'm going to owe you steaks for a year at this going rate. All I do is keep believing in my Falcons, and I keep getting egg on my face. But
well, I'm going to go ahead and see if you can get those eggs scrambled here on Sunday. I'll go ahead and take Minnesota there. I do think there'll be some points scored in this game. The total's 55. I could easily see possibly both teams having near 20 at halftime. There's no problem with the Atlanta Falcons offense. You saw how much trouble they get into when they try to stretch the field vertically against them, like what happened with Seattle on Monday night. And Matty Ice Ryan can stretch the field vertically on them, and they have plenty of weapons to do that. So I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I'll give you that.
Yeah, I definitely lean on the over as well because active dog, Falcons, and then if the Falcons are going to win any games this season, it's going to be the highest scoring game. Tony, we don't have any safeties. we literally we're bringing practice squad guys into safety. They're all hurt. So,
right.
So I would definitely lean on the over as well. In fact, I probably like the over more than the Falcons.
If you have Thielen or their tight end on your fantasy team, the tight end run a middle seams with no good safety, chances are you're probably going to have players with a lot of points this week if you're on those two players for Minnesota. We'll speed it up here a little bit. Don't forget to get over to DocSports.com. You see a free $60 that way above me. Click the link in the description below. You get a free $60. Get yourself hooked up this weekend with a football package from one of the 12 handicappers we have over there. Of course, Arun and I are the two best looking handicappers over there. That's for damn sure. But nonetheless, coming off a great week in football myself there. So I'm looking forward to this Sunday. I'm licking my chops for sure. Quickly, Cleveland, Pittsburgh. I had Pittsburgh as a 7-unit play last week. a rare 7-unit play. I was about ready to tear my entire house down with about 4 minutes left in that ball game. Somehow they won and covered the spread, mainly because they were playing the Eagles. I was shocked at how bad their defense played because I thought that they had a fairly good defense. And Philadelphia, despite Carson Wentz, their offensive line is Swiss cheese, and they couldn't seem to get complacent with a 31-14 lead, and instead of putting them away. That being said, Cleveland impressed me last week against a very good defense where they won handily. And Mayfield did not play all that well. He had a couple of picks in that game. And by the way, Phillip Rivers, hang him up. Go take care of your 27 kids. It's over. Pick 6 there for Rivers. But at the end of the day, is Cleveland a team that can go in here, right now, week 6, and make a statement to the Pittsburgh Steelers, Arun, and they say, guess what? This division isn't yours. It's not Baltimore's. Baltimore week 1 was a fluke. We're putting our foot down here. We're making a statement. We're the Cleveland Browns. We have this talent. We're buying into this coach, and we're going to come in here as a 3.5-point underdog, and we're going to beat you straight up in Heinz Field. Yes or no?
Yes, and it's a great point that you brought up this game, because I think it's one of the most important games there is, because what you have here is maybe a changing of the guard, right? You have a true legitimate changing of the guard. It just goes to show you how much of a no-nonsense coach Stefanski is. And remember, where is Stefanski from? He's from a Minnesota Vikings coaching pedigree. He's from that Zimmer, no-nonsense, focus, salt of the earth, Midwest, hardworking type of guy mentality. And that's why, a guy who, was an assistant and an offensive coordinator for the Vikings. And by the way, tell me that the Vikings offense struggled for the first few weeks without him. They did. Yeah. So it shows you how good Stefanski was. So this team, and to be honest, the reason why I like this question, Tony, is because who have the Steelers beat? They beat an Eagles team that's horrible. They beat a Texans team that's struggling. They beat a Denver team that's really without any playmakers. And they beat the Giants, and they're the Giants. So who has this team really beaten? And then you have a team here in the Browns who beat the Colts, who are a very, very good team. They're the top defense in the league. And they scored 32 points. They beat Dallas by 11, and they dominated that game from start to finish. Scoring 49 points is still a big deal. They beat a Washington team when Ron Rivera called out Dwayne Haskins, and they still beat that team. And then they beat the Bengals by 5, which is still pretty tough to do given how Joe Burrow was playing. So I think the Browns are the real deal. I think Baker Mayfield, you haven't heard anything about Baker Mayfield. Not a peep, not a word, no drama, no nothing. People are like, oh, he's the next Johnny Manziel. He is not the next Johnny Manziel. Baker Mayfield is a different mold than Johnny Manziel. And I think the Browns go in, and I think they probably win outright. And again, this goes back to our theory that, teams that will get up to face undefeated teams, well, the Steelers are undefeated. So the Browns will want to go here and make a statement. This is a big game for the Browns. They win this one. They take a leap above the Steelers, right? They'll have the tiebreaker on them too.
Well, the Steelers have played their last 16 home games against the Cleveland Browns, and they've been victorious. That goes all the way back to 2004. They've won those games by an average of 12 points per game, and they've covered 10 out of those 16 games, and the covers by 4 points over the spread. Maybe that changes this. I'm not, and trust me, I was high on Pittsburgh last week. They struggled in that game, although they blew a 31-14 lead. You didn't feel safe. I think that this is a game, as you mentioned, probably the biggest game Cleveland's played in 2 years, maybe 3 years. This really is a big game for the Cleveland Browns. So, and by far right now, they're going to be able to put some pressure on Big Ben here. They're going to be able to stuff the run. Claypool obviously is a talent like none other. You've got a couple of really, really good wide receivers there. Big Ben stays healthy. It might be a bit of a shootout. You would think over 51 might come into play here as well. Quickly, Green Bay -1.5 at Tampa Bay, over 54.5. Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. Who has the better team, Arun?
Well, the Packers.
Yeah.
Because I trust the Packers coaching staff actually a lot more. And LaFleur, and not that Arians is a bad coach, but I really trust the Packers coaching staff because he always has really adequate game plans from start to finish. And people when you look at the Packers defensive staff, people forget that Mike Petin is the Packers defensive coordinator. Remember, he used to coach the Browns. So whenever you have former head coaches as defensive coordinators, that's always a big deal. And that's the same thing with the Indianapolis Colts. I'm sorry, the Chicago Bears has the old Indianapolis Colts head coach Pagano as the defensive coordinator. So when you get guys like that, that's important. But at the end of the day, the Packers beat New Orleans on the road by 7. They beat Detroit by 21. They beat Minnesota by 11. So this is a team that's 4-0. It's not like they're looking ahead to anybody at the end of the day. Now, the reason why the line is the way it is because the Bucs are coming off of a loss, so they might be upset. And that's the reason why it's only that way. And I can tell you that the books are going to definitely be rooting for Tampa Bay in this game. But, I'm really not – I mean, Tampa Bay's offense looked so bad last week. You know what I mean? And maybe Brady comes out and he's taking a lot of heat for not knowing what down it is and blah, blah, blah. So I'm staying away, but the better team definitely is going to be Green Bay. But I'm just kind of staying away because the public is so much on Green Bay here. So, yeah.
It has been, and Green Bay opened up at 2.5, now down to 1.5. Although the money's the tickets written favor Green Bay. The money wagered favors Tampa Bay. So that tells you where the smart money's at, and that's one thing you always want to look at. Is
and this goes back to our theory, right? Who's undefeated here? Green Bay. You know what I mean? And maybe Tampa Bay was looking ahead to Green Bay, which is why they laid an egg in Chicago.
I had a lot they could have been, but I saw a lot of issues in that Chicago game with Tampa Bay that are not something that are going to go away overnight. Chicago did a very nice job, and quite frankly, Nagy outcoached Arians in that game. And that's not surprising. Nagy's a good football coach. He's an Andy Reid disciple. But I thought he outcoached Arians. And I'll tell you something, Green Bay has a very, very sharp coaching staff. Bear that in mind. Quickly on Monday Night Football, we'll let everybody go. Obviously, Dallas Cowboys. I'm not buying into your conspiracy theory because you're an Atlanta Falcons fan, and I know that you would walk a mile through glass butt naked on national television to get Trevor Lawrence to play quarterback for you next year. But nonetheless, I would have done the same for Mahomes if I'd have known he was that good at Texas Tech, and I'm a Chiefs fan. But at the end of the day here, I do not think, number one, in the Monday Night Football game, that Andy Dalton is a bad option for Dallas. This is an experienced quarterback that started almost 140 games in the NFL. He's taken his team without good coaching. Don't tell me Marvin Lewis was a good coach. How he kept a job 11 years, I have no idea. But he took his team to the promised land, to the playoffs, 5 years in a row. He won 10 games or more 5 years in a row. The year they were in the playoffs, the Red Rifle still got some moxie. I thought he came in and played well. He has a lot of weapons at his disposal. Maybe the best running back in the NFL, close to it. Arizona -2.5. Here's Arizona's MO. Arizona can beat up anybody that's not worth a shit, but when they play somebody good or they come up against a good coaching staff, they get their ass handed to them. So in my opinion, I think the wrong team's favored here. Talk me out of it.
No, that's right. And the wins that Arizona has right now, the two teams are 1-7 combined, right? And that's Washington with their 1 win. And then, you have your Jets are 0-4. So that 30-10 win against the Jets with Joe Flacco as a quarterback is not that impressive.
Big deal.
So who do they lose to? They lost to Carolina by 10. They lost to Detroit by 3. And we crack on Detroit. Well, guess who lost to Detroit? Arizona did. I think this is going to be a game. I think this is going to be the easiest game Dallas has had all year because you're getting. I
Yeah.
think you're absolutely right. I think you're getting the +2. I think you have a team here, but the question is their defense, right? I mean, their defense has given up 39 and 38 or 49 and 34 points. I'm interested. I'm shocked to see the total this low. I thought for sure the total was going to come out like 57 ish. You know what I mean? Something much higher.
Right.
But maybe the Cowboys have no other option but to fix their defense because they can't rely on Dak. Okay, he's not your crutch anymore because Andy Dalton's going to score you about 25 points, maybe 30 points. You need to rely on that defense. I think this is and you can't hold too much against the Cowboys because they faced the Browns team who are above 500. They beat the Giants, good for them. They lost by a touchdown to the Seahawks, can't hold it against them, and they beat the Falcons. So and you lose to the Rams by 3. In all honesty, they haven't lost that bad. You know what I mean? They lost to good teams. I think the Cowboys and a change of quarterback, I think they step up. And I think Andy Dalton's been kind of waiting for this moment. I think the Cowboys will do well.
Couple of words of advice for everybody watching. Number one is the only thing that scares a living dog piss out of me, more than my wife shopping with a credit card that won't answer her phone, is the Dallas defense. And we do have Kyler Murray here, who is dangerous with his feet. He's a miniature version with a better arm of Jackson for Baltimore, in my opinion. They have 3 receivers that can beat anybody down the field. So that's a concern for Dallas. Dallas is going to have to score points to win this game. So that being said, Monday Night Football, you might want to stick around with the same game 2-team teaser. Go ahead and tease Dallas up to 8.5. Get them through, 3, 6, 7. Maybe stick them with Cleveland on Sunday. Get them to 9.5, and for a little 2-teamer. And then on the total, take that 55, tease it down to 49, and take the over and Dallas up to 8.5. And that way you can take some question marks out of it for you on Monday Night Football if you shy away from a side or total. Folks, we're going to let you go here. That's our week in the NFL. Arun, a big weekend for you upcoming in college and pro football, I'm sure.
Yeah, 9 selections, and we typically don't do 7-star selections. I didn't have as good of a week as you did. You did phenomenal last week, going 5-1. So we'll have our 9 selections: a 6-star, a 4-star, and then 7 3-stars. And we're looking to duplicate what we did 2 weekends ago, which was going 6-3. So we're excited about that. And we closed out the NBA well, though, plus 9,000. We're 10-2 in baseball playoffs. We start the baseball playoffs. So hopefully we'll duplicate what you did last weekend in football.
There you go. Well, if you can handicap half as good as your Braves are playing right now, you're going to have a great weekend of football. I can tell you that, brother. Folks, thanks for tuning in. I'm Tony George. He's Indian Cowboy Arun Shiva from DocSports.com. Get over there, take advantage of the free account, and get yourself hooked up this weekend with some 7-stars, both from Arun and myself on Saturday and Sunday. And we got 10 other handicappers over there that are the best in the business, and 90+% of the stuff we have over there is absolutely free. Videos, free picks, odds, matchups, scores, you name it, we got it. Doc Sports. That's your winning combination this weekend. Thanks for tuning in.